Welcome to episode number 81 of the Section 247 show, a Sports Talk Philly partner. I am Michael Lipinski, joined as always by Michael Watkins. And Michael, as you can see, just looking at the screen, it looks a little bit different, sir. We have a new look. We have a new logo, a new banner up on the top. Same show, just a new look, a little streamlined, a little old school, a little new school. What do you think of it there?
Looks good. It does look good. It's impressive. And you might want to turn down whatever you're listening to right now because I can hear myself. And it's bad enough I have to look at myself. Now I got to hear myself too. Ocho Uno, I believe, is what my wife is calling this episode right here. So Ocho Uno.
Yeah, Ocho Uno, number 81, in honor of who else but other than T.O., right? I mean, there's Jason Avant, there's Jordan Matthews, Andrew Terwinski, I think, but, T.O., the greatest number 81 in Philadelphia sports history. Agree or disagree?
Yeah. I agree with you on that one. I mean, what could have been if Don McNabb was just put his ego aside and just realized that the wide receivers in the NFL have the biggest egos there is, but they're one of the best talents when they're good. And he was good.
He was good.
We should have won the 2004 Super Bowl. Who knows what might have been if number 5 actually was a worthy quarterback. But I don't want to get into that. There's no point in getting into that tonight. No. I need a mental health day. That's what I need.
I think we all need a mental health day at this point. This whole thing is driving people a little batty, a little crazy. Real quick, we'll get our mental health days in a little bit, but let's do a quick rundown, right? Rundown on the show. We're going to talk ESPN's Last Dance on the Chicago Bulls. We're going to talk Philadelphia Eagles draft busts and why Mike Mamula is not a draft bust. And if you think Mike Mamula is a draft bust, you are a stone cold moron. I pretty much said that today on Sports Talk Philly for a wonderful article that I wrote. We're going to bring in at 9:45-ish. We're going to bring in Paul Bowman, managing editor of Eagledelphia, to talk Eagles draft. And that's what we got going on tonight. We're going to be very sports oriented. We're coming up on the draft time. It is what it is. It's going to take our minds off it a little bit. Couple quick points. New logos, new merchandise is going to be coming out soon. We're working on that. We have some things to iron out, design tree kind of things. Hint, hint. We're going to go from there. Show, as always, is sponsored by Michael's Glass Company. Scrolling on the bottom there, 215-338-3293. Follow us on all social. Michael, tell everyone how they can find us.
So you can find us exactly how the comments are coming tonight. What's up, Will? Will's leaving us at 10, man. He's leaving us for a TV show. I mean, go figure that one.
He is leaving us for the dark side of the ring and the Dino Bravo assassination. Don't smoke, kids. That's the moral of the story there.
I don't know about that one. What are you drinking tonight before we get into that?
Big Schweppes ginger ale.
Oh, look at that. I have my Cape May. I have the grapefruit. Crushing it. This is a little bit of an oldie but a goodie that I have like so many of. You got the orange one. We all saw the Instagram post. How are you liking the orange one?
I haven't had the orange one yet, so I'm holding off on it for a little bit. But I had tan limes. That's always a good one.
And guess what? Tan limes supposedly is staying. It's not going anywhere. They got rid of the original Cape May lager, and tan limes will be around for the foreseeable future. So that's good. Francesca comes up with double nickel. I've been enjoying a lot of double nickel lately. My refrigerator is full with double nickel and Cape May beer right now. Those are the only 2 beers that are in there. They're all fantastic. But you can find us just how we have the comments coming in. What's up, Zach? From the Section 247 show feed, which is going to be on Facebook, it's going to be on YouTube, or it's going to be on Periscope, Twitter. So we can see your comments only if you're in the Section 247 show feed. So we appreciate you sharing it. We want you to share it. But just note, if you are sharing it and you're going to comment, you have to be in our feed for us to see it, and we want to see it.
Yeah, we want to interact with you. It's a fun thing about this version of the program. So, let's get at it. Let's get out of here.
You wanted to spring for Canada Dry?
I got whatever was on sale. I'm a cheap bastard. What do you want from me?
Kenny, what's up?
pay is getting cut. You gotta do what you gotta do. We don't talk about that stuff here. So let's move on to
before we get started,
yeah.
Isn't you have to wish somebody happy birthday today?
Yeah, happy birthday to my sister Erin. I have no idea how old she is. All I know is I'm still extremely bitter that she stole my room from me and that I had to turn off WIP at 8:00 so she could go to bed because the baby's crib was in my bedroom for the first 6 months until they booted me out.
Well, your sister's 29. So
Apparently.
it's last year in her 20s. And let me tell you, man, I've been seeing just nonstop Instagram stories all day of everybody making her signs, bringing her pizzas, cookies. Man, she's a popular person, even in a pandemic. So happy birthday, Erin. Enjoy the last year of your 20s.
Yeah, and if she wants to bring me pizza, I would appreciate that because I could go for some pizza. I made cheesesteaks tonight, so it was good. Let's move on. To you wanted to talk about it. ESPN documentary, The Last Dance. It was it a 30 for 30? It's the one
Yes.
they moved up, correct? So I haven't watched it yet, but I have heard bits and pieces, and it is getting rave reviews. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Outstanding reviews. They dropped episodes 1 and 2. It's a 10-part series, I believe. So they're doing looks like 2 episodes every Sunday. At least that's how my DVR has it set up right now. And let me tell you, man, it's supposed to be following the 97-98 Bulls and the Last Dance, the back end of their second three-peat. But they also are going back in time and looking at different roles, such as Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman's even in there, Phil Jackson. And I've learned what a real douchebag Jerry Krause was in just the way he did things. He wanted all the credit, never mind the talent, such as Michael Jordan. And the interviews that they give, first of all, the curses are left in.
The talent, such as Michael Jordan. That's funny.
The curses are left in, which is always good. And I don't know if that was more or less they're just doing it like maybe the first time they drop it and anytime they replay it, they'll beep it out. But that was always nice. Let me tell you something. And she just said it now. My wife got into it. My wife was like, oh, man, that's it? Is there any more? This isn't like a Netflix where we can watch all 10 episodes. No, we have to wait to every Sunday. So we watched them yesterday, a day after them because we're not staying up. But
because you're 8-year-old.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. You need to watch it. And anybody out there that hasn't, even if you're not a basketball fan, I grew up on Michael Jordan. That's kind of where my basketball ties ended once he left the league. My wife doesn't really watch that much basketball either. She liked it. Dave's checking in and says he loved it too. So definitely was good. I can't wait for the next 8 episodes, man. It definitely had me wanting to go back and rewatch it. I probably will watch the first 2 episodes before next Sunday comes out.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out. Look, I'm a documentary guy as it is, and when you add sports to it, it's definitely worth it. They were talking about it that's how good it was. They were talking about it on Sports Radio WIP this morning, and they brought it up. What local team would you make a documentary about? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I would probably, the 93 Phillies, you already made one. They had that whatever it takes, dude. Geez. I think I would have to make it on the 2010 Flyers because they were just a party team. There was a lot of partying going on, and they made it to the playoffs on the last day of the season in shootouts and then made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Didn't win, unfortunately. But I would have to do it on them right now.
Cool. I think that'd be a good one. I think I would want to do the 04-05 Philadelphia Eagles. Not necessarily the Super Bowl team.
The year after.
Yeah,
when
that whole came
crashing down.
When it all came crashing down and it hurt inside, literally. I would want to do that.
Didn't TO do something that's going to be coming out talking about everything that went on during that whole time?
I don't know. I don't listen to TO.
Yeah, I think something happened. Will wants the 2011 Phillies.
Interesting. 01, 2000, 2001 Sixers. That's a good one too.
That's an interesting one because their trade deadline was monumental in them getting to the championship, just like the Phillies in 08 getting Blanton. But the championship teams now, there's so much stuff that comes out that it's kind of hard to say, I wish they make a documentary because they're pretty much following, I think, every team around. 97, 98, it was pretty unheard of that they had that much access. I would say, how did this not get released? It took 12 years, right? No, 22 years to get released. They've been holding on to that long. That's pretty impressive. That
it is pretty impressive.
All the time, it took 22 years for them to finally release this. And not only that, they're making a big deal that they moved it up. Well, it's 22 years to make it. Oh, look at Ashley checking in tonight on Facebook. Thank you.
So I'm going to check it out, and we can talk
Jordan
about
wouldn't release it. All right. Sounds right.
Okay, that makes sense then.
It's Jordan's world. We're just living it. 97 Flyers. No, thank you.
Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. And we don't want to.
I just don't like the ending of that one.
No, we don't want to see that. Let's move on here. I wrote an article for Sports Talk Philly, and the title of the article, I have it right here. You can read it. Go on to Sports Talk Philly. I shared the link in the comments. Mike Mamula is in a draft bust, and here are 10 Eagles picks that are. If you think that Mike Mamula is a draft bust, you're an idiot. I didn't put that in the title, but I should have. And I essentially called people out because you always see it on Facebook. Who's the worst Eagles pick of all time? And it's Mike Mamula. And you know what, Michael Watkins, going into this article and looking up some things. Number one, I was very disturbed at some of the Eagles draft picks. Really, really bad. But I looked more at Mike Mamula's stats. Do you know who he was comparable to in his first 4 seasons?
Well, I cheated and read your article. Am I allowed to answer this question?
Yes, you can.
It was Jason Taylor.
And Jason Taylor is a Hall of Famer. Now, that's not – I don't know. We don't know if Mike Mamula would have stayed on that trajectory. He got hurt. We don't know. Through his 5 years, he only played 5 years for the Eagles. He had actually a really solid career. The biggest problem is that he was drafted before Warren Sapp. I get it. But the Eagles didn't need a defensive tackle at that point. They had Andy Harmon. They were loaded up. They were looking for the replacement for Reggie White. Here you have a guy coming off of an all-American career at Boston College. It just made sense. To call him bad is outrageous. And you know who he compares to through his 5 years? You read it. Why don't you tell the people?
I can't say his name.
Yannick Ngakoue, who every Eagles fan is clamoring for because he's going after Tony Khan and company. Bring him in. Bring him in. If Ngakoue is so damn good, why do you hate Mike Mamula so much?
Yeah, and Kenny touches on it there.
He's right.
I think the reason why he's just considered a bust in this city is because of, you said it, whose shoes he had to fill, who he was replacing.
It was a bad scenario for him. Having to replace Reggie White.
I mean, it's the same scenario of when Mike Schmidt retired and having to replace him at third base.
Was it Charlie Hayes?
Yes, it was Charlie Hayes.
Who's a good ball player.
Exactly. But what happened to Charlie Hayes every time he did something wrong? The boo birds just rained down on him. He was in a no-win situation. Anytime you replace anybody that great. Look, we see it with Nick Foles still. We're almost 3 seasons removed, and we still see with Nick Foles with Carson Wentz because Nick Foles won the Super Bowl. So anytime you're replacing greatness, I feel that the expectations to live up to that are next to impossible.
So there's guys. Will's commenting here. Kenny's commenting here. Here we go. Here, I'll give you the list in the order. I went with offensive tackle Kevin Allen, 1985 first-round pick. He only played 1 year in the league. That's because he was arrested for a rape. Buddy Ryan called him a USFL reject. This is in no order, mind you. Bernard Williams, 1994 first-round pick. I remember Bernard Williams, really solid player, won all rookie in his first year. Decided to hit the marijuana a little bit, never played another game in the National Football League. John Harris played 24 total games over 2 seasons. He did nothing. The Eagles traded him to the Packers. The fireman, Danny Watkins, is on there, and God bless him. I can't blame him for wanting to be a firefighter. Can't blame him at all. Leonard Renfro is on the list. Jerome McDougal, all he did was get shot.
Actually went on to have a good career with the Raiders, though.
Jerome McDougal?
Yeah.
No, Jerome McDougal didn't play for the Raiders.
No, was it Burgess? Burgess played for
Derek Burgess was not a draft bust at all. Marcus Smith. Remember good old Marcus Smith?
See, I don't know. That's, That's during the Chip Kelly days, so I don't know
But
if we would count that.
he started 0 games for the Eagles. He never started a game in the National Football League. Notable players drafted after him were Kelvin Benjamin, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Kyle Van Noy. Michael Haddix. Michael Haddix was drafted in 1983. That was the quarterback draft. The Eagles could have had a lot of players. Jim Kelly. 4 Hall of Famers were drafted after Michael Haddix, including offensive tackle Bruce Matthews, who was selected by the Oilers immediately after him at 9. Freddie Mitchell on the list. Look, I know he made a great play, but he didn't do anything. And we're going to close it off on with Kevin Cobb, which I think is a little bit of a guy got hurt, but he did nothing either. And the Eagles traded a pick to make him the heir apparent. Will chimes in with Sean Andrews. Sean Andrews petered out, but he actually had
a Pro Bowl too.
He had a very, very good career until he, kind of went wacky there.
Yeah, he did. Oh, yeah. Well, that's why they had to bring his brother in. They had to bring his brother in to keep him in check.
Yeah, Stacey Andrews Day. We're not going to talk about Brian Dawkins leaving. This is Stacey Andrews Day. Anyone else stand out to you?
No, you know why also too, going back to Mamula is because they traded up to get him. Anytime you make a trade in order to make a pick, and again, Carson Wentz. You made a big trade to get Carson Wentz, and that's why there's going to be higher scrutiny with these picks. And let's face it, first round picks, everybody, and now second round even these days when they pick them, they expect you to be impact right away, successful your first season, and sometimes it doesn't happen. You see, Mamula was very consistent.
He was extremely consistent until he got hurt. I mean, even when he got hurt, you have a defensive end with averaging 6.5 sacks, 8 sacks, you get 5.5, 8, 4. He was injured, 8.5, 5.5. He was hurt. 209 total tackles in 77 games, 64 of which were started. He was fantastic. Will, I was going to throw Kenny Jackson in there, but I was talked off the ledge there for reasons that we cannot divulge on this podcast. Text me and I'll let you know.
Yeah, and Will also said Charlie Hayes did get his ring, didn't he? Yeah, he did.
He did. You're right.
Yeah. But yeah, your article is right there. I mean, this was something that you and I have talked about over the years, that he really wasn't a bust. And hopefully people that think that dissuades their argument to the other side, because you years ago told me that he wasn't a bust, and it compelled me then when you backed it up. So, man, being compared to Jason Taylor, and Jason Taylor is a Hall of Famer, and he's considered one of the biggest busts. It's just because of the Reggie White. That's all it is.
It's because of Reggie White. It's because of Warren Sapp, and that's fine. But the hate for the guy, I just don't understand it. I don't get it.
You know why? Because that was when sports really started to take that next step to mainstream, that it was every day, no matter what channel it was. The Eagles had traded up for a high pick, and they were going in a different direction than where they came from. It was a big, just in Philadelphia, and just in the NFL really was taking the next step into stardom that they are now, and the superpower they are.
And this was one of the first times where someone went to the combine and trained specifically for the combine. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the reasons that Mike Mamula rose to where he did. It's Will. I'll tell you afterwards. He texted me. He wants to know, but
what about Kenny Jackson?
About Kenny Jackson, I can tell you later off the air too. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is the guy wasn't that bad, and he gets a raw deal, and it's time to move on. It's time to move on from it. Let's move on
to a new beer.
Let's move on to a new beer. And I see joining us in the green room, we're going to bring him in here. We're going to start our Eagles draft preview. The managing editor of Sports Talk Phillies Eagles section, Eagledelphia, Paul Bowman. I'm bringing him in. Michael, there we go. Paul, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
I got my Mike Mamula autograph here for you.
See, perfect.
All right.
We were just saying, he really gets a raw deal on being considered a bust. He was better than people realized.
Yeah, I can tell from the stats. I can't say from watching him because at the time I got the autograph, I was like 3 or something. So I didn't actually see him play.
See, we got to watch him play, and he made plays. The one that stands out to me always, and it's one of my favorite Eagles plays of all time, was 4th and 1 twice. The groundhog, the great play with Emmitt Smith where they stopped him twice. He was involved in that play. He had a lot of good plays. He got hurt. It happens, But you trade up and you waste a pick. I guess that's why you get that. You get slammed that way. But Paul, thank you for joining us. Let's talk a little bit more of now, and we're going to talk Eagles draft. You had an interesting article. I guess it was last Saturday?
Somewhere around there.
Talking about the Eagles trading up and if it is a good or bad idea. What do you think? Let us know. Let us know what you wrote there. I'm looking at it, but let the people know.
Personally, I think you can look at trade ups. I wouldn't really look at doing it the way that it's been talked about with them moving up to 11 out of nowhere. I think it makes sense if they're looking at somebody and they start to slip, or if Howie Roseman can pull off those deals like he did with Byron Maxwell and just move big contracts and use that to move up in the draft. So like if we can get rid of Alshon's contract, move up in the draft to get a receiver, it's a good idea. But I wouldn't sell significant draft capital to move up to get one of the receivers in a class that's just so deep with them.
Well, what I'd say too is they're number 3 right now in cap space heading into the draft. So I mean, it's almost for them. It's a seller's market. They can do whatever they want. They're in a good spot. As far as that goes, people might not think they're in a good spot as far as roster wise and what they're going to put out in the field in some cases, but they have the money, they have talent that they can move if they want, or as the Sixers put it, assets that they can move. So it should be exciting. I think I stay put at 21. I agree with Kenny. Stay put at 21. Agree with Dave. He says it too.
Well, I think this is almost fan driven. It's sports radio driven. It's that the wide receiver is the sexy pick. Paul and I were going back and forth on Messenger. And I was saying that, everyone wants the wide receiver because it's flashy, but it's not always the big hit that everyone thinks it is. You had a stat in that article that really floored me. It was 17.6% of wide receivers actually in the first round actually come through. And
yeah, I was surprised when I was looking it up. I didn't think it was going to be that low.
I mean, who was it? It was 3 guys over the past five years that have actually produced.
I think there was more guys that I would say produce, but I mean, if you're looking at guys that you're trading up to get, I don't think you're looking at a guy you're not looking for a guy who's just going to be an average receiver. And the only guys that I think would have been more than average receivers are Amari Cooper, and it might be a little too early to tell on the other 2, but so far they've been productive. It's DJ Moore and Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, so I'm looking at it here. 17 receivers have been drafted in the first round in the past 5 drafts. Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, and Calvin Ridley, you just named, are the only 3 to achieve 650 yards in each season of their career. That is crazy. I mean, think about that. There is so many assets are traded away for these guys, and there it is. It's just it doesn't work.
I think it would be different if they weren't looking for a more an immediate impact, because you got guys that were also drafted and just had breakout seasons this year, but it's like 3-4 years into their career, and that's not what they're looking for.
I think you have to get Carson Wentz some weapons, and that's where this whole thing comes from. but is it worth it in the long run? I just don't think it is. A lot of people are now saying stay put. I agree. I think it's a situation where they stay put. What's your take on it, though? Do you think that the Eagles are going to be aggressive? Reports are that they're going to be aggressive. Is it a lot of smoke screen, or are they going to make a ballsy move and move up to 13, 11, whatever? They're not going up in the top 10. I'd be floored.
Mm-hmm. I think they're going to be aggressive in trading or looking for trades. I think that depends on how the draft falls that day. I think if they see guys slipping, they'll be aggressive in trading up, and if they see that the guys that they want are gone early, they'll probably be aggressive in looking to move back and get a couple extra picks in the later rounds to pick some of the depth in the draft.
And Paul, who do you think would have to start slipping for them to say, hey, maybe we should trade up and get this guy? Is there anybody in particular that you would target?
I mean, the top three guys are the main guys that I would be looking at to trade up for, Lamb, Ruggs, and Judy. I don't know that it makes sense to trade up for anyone else. I personally am not a big fan of Justin Jefferson. No, I think he'll be productive, but I don't think he's going to be the guy that the Eagles are looking for. And then I think there's a lot of talent that's being overlooked in the draft just because of how good the guys at the top are.
And is there any way that you think that they go away from wide receiver? Do you think number 20, if they stay at 21 or any pick they move up to, wide receiver is going to be their pick?
I would think if they move up, it's probably going to be a receiver. If they stay put or trade back, I wouldn't be surprised if they pick someone other than a receiver, because there's plenty of guys on the board, and if there's a run on wide receivers and a run on tackles like there's supposed to be, there's going to be pretty good defenders dropping. You can probably get one of the top safeties, linebackers, or cornerbacks. I don't know that they'll take a linebacker, but there'll be impact defenders there for him.
Am I the only one that wants in the draft an offensive lineman in the first round?
I'd be okay with it. I don't know that fans would be, but
well, see that's what it is. It's the fans probably wouldn't, and everyone would riot. There's guys there that I would love to see. Do you think a guy like Cesar Ruiz, he's coming, he's a Camden native, went to IMG, Michigan kid. He has been rising. His draft stock has been rising. He was targeted as a second, third round pick early on, but now there's talk of him falling into the first round. He, to me, would be an ideal replacement for a Jason Kelce. He can play guard. He can play center. He can do a bunch of different things. That would be a pick, I'd be okay with. Maybe even trade back a little bit and try and draft him. Do you see a scenario like that happening?
Yeah, I could see if they trade back, I could see him picking them. I think it would be especially effective this year if you can get him to play some guard for you and compete with Isaac Seumalo with all the depth that they lost on the line. It'd be nice to have either him be able to back up all the inside positions, or if he beats out Seumalo for the starting job, then you got Seumalo who can cover all of the positions as the backup. So
defensively, it's a pretty strong class, especially, you said it, when it comes to this part of the draft later in the 20s. A couple of guys that stand out to me, Penn State's Yetur Gross-Matos, really, really strong edge rusher. AJ Epinesa is another guy from Iowa that I really like. I don't know where he fits in the National Football League. He's kind of that tweener guy. Who do you see defensively that is someone the Eagles could look to pick at 21 if they stay there or if they trade?
I think it depends on how the board falls. I would think if they're there, Patrick Queen and Kenneth Murray are going to be the linebackers they would target. I don't think C.J. Henderson will fall. When I was first looking at it a couple months ago, I thought he could fall there. I don't think he will now, but they might have a chance at getting Fulton. Either McKinney or Delpit could be there. And then the edge rushers, I'm not so sure who will fall. It kind of I don't know if there's anybody that I would pick at 21. There's a couple guys that I would probably look at if we were trading back, but like Gross Matos, I don't know if I'd pick him at 21. I don't know that he's going to be that productive out of the gate.
Yeah, I would agree with you. He's kind of a smart football player. He was a really great player at the college level, but a little bit of a work in progress kind of guy. And I think that's where they are. I mean, we did a mock draft special that's available for podcast form, and the discussion was at that range, 21 and back. You know, you're getting the work in progress guys. It's okay to move away, get a couple extra picks, and build more of those type of dudes. Get football players, but not necessarily the great athletes.
I'd be all for that. I mean, let's face it, this team does already have talent. You know, and they've been actually their track record, or Howie's track record anyway, is better with free agents than it is draft picks. I'd be all for trading your higher picks, getting those middle, you know, the second, third, fourth round picks, have your depth guys in the positions that you really need help with, especially when the injuries have loaded up over the past couple seasons. So I'd be all for that, you know. And then we also have some questions coming in. It looks like Zach was, you know, what about Jalen Reagor at 43? What do you think of that, Paul?
I mean, if he's there in the second round, I would take him. I don't know that he's going to fall to any of the Eagles picks in the second round unless they end up getting a high second round pick in a trade back or something like that.
That's something that I would be okay with, trading your first round pick for possibly 2 second round picks. This way you possibly could go after him and another depth guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible, but they would, I think they would need to make a deal that would move them in a position to be able to get him in the second round.
Yeah, a lot's been made of KJ Hamler as well. He's a name that's being talked about at wide receiver. A lot of services have him slotted as a second round guy. Do you think he's a guy that would be there when the Eagles are picking in the second, without any moves, assuming there's no moves?
I think that's gonna depend on how the draft falls. I think it depends on when Ruggs gets taken. And then that's going to affect when Reagor gets taken, and then that's going to affect when Hamler gets taken.
It's really a weird draft this year. There's no, I mean, the draft is a crapshoot every year, but there's this sense, maybe it's with everything going on, the Zoom drafting and all that stuff, but that this draft is going to get real weird, and guys that are slotted as twos are going to get taken as ones. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is more teams. We're not sure what positions more teams are targeting. So you got teams that are targeting multiple positions, and depending on which position they pick, they could start a run on a different position. So you got like a lot of the top teams could pick, especially in that like 10 to 17 range. You got a lot of teams that could pick either offensive tackles or wide receivers that would really fill needs. And depending on which way those goes, they could start a run on them and drop the players in the other position down. And that's going to change everything else in the draft, how people fall.
With the situation of, you know, the pandemic and how there's not really a whole lot that you can do or going on right now, do you see a lot of trades maybe happening as far as, you know, current roster players moving for extra picks, since it's been kind of a very quiet off season with, you know, some, you know, Cam Newton being released and that, you know, it seems like it could go either way. Do you see any major roster players getting moved?
I would think so. I don't know if it necessarily has much to do with the off season, but it seems like there's a lot more teams that are looking to move players on their roster, and a lot of teams that just don't have any picks in the draft. There's a lot of teams that seem to have a lot fewer picks than they should normally have. So I think they'll be looking to move players on their roster to get in to the later portions of the draft or move up in the draft to increase their value.
Do you see Alshon Jeffrey getting traded in the next couple days? There was a rumor that came out. I believe it started on 97.5. I'm not 100% sure. I can check, but that his name was going to be bandied about, as it has been for 2 years now. But he will not be an Eagle come next Sunday night at 11 o'clock. What are your thoughts on that?
I can't say. I know they said he was one of the. I think it was Peter King said he was one of his players to watch that would be moved during the draft.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't say whether I think it would be a smart move. It seems like a very Howie move. I'm just not sure if there'll be any takers for him with his contract and the injury that he's got.
They would have to eat a lot of contract in order for another team to take that on. And quite honestly, I think he's better that if he stays with the Eagles. I know there's the whole anonymous source in the locker room that everything points to him. I just think that the past 2 seasons, for how banged up he was and not being able to perform, I think this season he has a chip on his shoulder and he's got something to prove to make us fans shut up. And I think what better way to do that is keep him in midnight green.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I fall on that. I guess it kind of depends on how I'm going to feel about it until after the draft to see how many receiver prospects they come away with. And then I'll probably decide whether I think he should have been traded so that they have the roster spot for one of the prospects, or whether it would be better to keep a semi-reliable target when he's healthy.
Semi-reliable for a quarterback right now that needs as many weapons as he can get that are not tight ends and running backs. I don't know what it is about Philadelphia, but the wide receiver position just they don't care. They haven't cared for decades, since Kenny Jackson in 1983. And I will tell you, I will text you. Don't worry about that. It was Natalie Eganoff's tweet that I was referencing. This was actually regarding Jerry Jeudy's draft stock dropping because of a knee injury that has not been disclosed. It's interesting with everything going on. Players haven't come in for their traditional interviews with teams. It's been done over Zoom. There's a lot of uncertainty here. You got a guy, a rumor 2 days before the draft that he has a knee injury. Maybe not. It's a very bizarre time.
Yeah, I think we'll see which teams really look forward in this draft, because if you've got guys that have been looking forward for a longer period of time and you've got more info stored on them, then you're going to be in better shape than people who have just started this year and have, I guess, like the combine and the Senior Bowl, and then that's essentially it. Agreed.
I want to take some comments here from the people. Dave chimes in. He thinks Rasul gets moved before Alshon. Rasul Douglas tweeting his best Stone Cold Steve Austin that he's going to flip the double bird on the way out. Do you think he's gone here in the next few days, or is this more of just an angry guy with Twitter and he's stuck at home like the rest of us and he's going a little nuts?
I don't blame him if it is.
I think he's pretty likely to get moved. Either one of him or Sidney Jones, I think, is likely to get moved.
Please, Sidney Jones.
I'm sure the Eagles are gonna end up coming away with a defensive back, and there's a couple safeties in the draft that might play out more as a cornerback in the NFL. So I think they'll end up coming away with at least one guy that they're looking at as a cornerback prospect, or at least a safety cornerback prospect. And they've got a ton of cornerbacks on the roster. And they got Trevor Williams, I think his name is. Yep. And he was solid before he got injured. So if they get him back into shape and he can perform, then they've got a a glut of cornerbacks on the roster, and no room for new players there really. So they're going to need to manufacture their own room by moving people out.
Yeah, I think with that is they took such a risk on Sidney Jones that they just want to exercise every option they can until they give up on him. And unfortunately, I think Rasul Douglas is the scapegoat in that one. Even though I think both of them side by side, I think Douglas is a better player.
I still have hope that Jones is the better player. He made some nice plays last year, but Douglas, the reason I would be hesitant to trade Douglas is because, as far as I can remember, he's pretty much the only corner we've had over the past couple of seasons that hasn't gotten hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have had like a minor injury.
Yeah,
and also can drop back to safety too if needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was one of the.
Oh, go ahead.
I think that was one of the bigger shocks was that Rasul Douglas wasn't the guy that they were going to move back to safety, that it was Jalen Mills. Interesting decision there by Jim Schwartz. We'll see how that pans out this year. Anthony chimes in, are the Eagles going to look at O-line? Now, we touched on it. It kind of depends on how this falls. But if they were to look at offensive linemen, where do you see them going? It's real interesting, the Eagles setup right now. You have an aging center. You have Dillard, who's a tackle who they may or may not like, depending on who you listen to. Lane Johnson's obviously there. The guards, they're almost nameless. Isaac Seumalo's there, but it's what do you see them doing? Do you see them making a run at a lineman? And if the opportunity presents itself, and who would it be?
I could see them pulling a guy in the first round. Or if they trade back and get an extra pick in the first 2 rounds, then it'll be one of those guys. But I don't see them taking an offensive lineman otherwise, unless it's like rounds 4 through 6. Because that's where they've had success doing that in the past couple of years. I mean, Big V and Isaac Seumalo were both 4th and 5th round picks, I think. Or 5th and 6th round, I don't remember which. But they've been picking up tackles late in the draft that have either become starters or a starting caliber player. Seumalo was taken as a tackle. They just moved him inside. Pryor, I think, was a tackle, and they moved him inside. So I think they're just going to take whatever tackle they think is best, that Jeff Stoutland can best develop, bring him in, see if they can make him a starter. And at some point, once they feel like they got to move on, they might take a higher pick. If they're in position to take someone like Cesar Ruiz, they'll probably take the shot at him. But I don't see him taking him until later in the draft and then developing an under-the-radar kind of guy like they did the past couple seasons.
The later rounds is kind of where, especially with the linemen, where you're finding football players. The first couple rounds, I always used to say the first day, rounds 1, 2, and 3 were always somewhat athletic guys. Round 1 was obviously the athletic freaks. But when you get into those later rounds, you're getting the Haas's, the guys that are just out there that are good football players that can manhandle people. Look at Jason Kelsey. I mean, was he a 6th round pick, a 5th or 6th round pick? That's where you're finding your guys. It's going to be interesting. Talking later rounds, who are some potential later round targets that you think the Eagles might be looking at? Like, we're talking a third round and back. Any names stick out for you?
A lot of people have been looking at Akeem Davis-Gaither. I'm not sure that they'll be able to get him because I'm not sure that they're going to be willing to spend a 3rd round pick on a linebacker.
He's not. Is he related to Omar Gaither?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I haven't looked into it, though. So
I liked Omar Gaither.
There's a couple. My favorite receiver in the draft is Tyler Johnson. I'd probably be pretty surprised if he goes before the 3rd round. So I think that would be somebody that they would be targeting if he drops at all. He's kind of been picking up a little bit more steam lately, so I don't know if he'll be there, but other guys that I've personally been looking at are like Quintez Cephas out of Wisconsin. I wouldn't say he's fast, but he's got that football speed that they talk about. Is able to pull away at the end of routes. Is more developmental receiver. I just lost the other name. I can't remember what I was going to say.
Dave on Facebook likes the interior lineman out of Washington, but he can't remember his name. Do you guys know who he is?
Dave, I need more information. I'm not that much of a savant, so no.
He just told you interior lineman out of Washington.
Yeah, I know. I'd have to Google it. I look up the Washington Huskies roster. I'm sorry, it's Pac-12 football. It's not even real football. I don't pay attention to that.
Oh, come on.
This is coming from a Rutgers guy, mind you. So I haven't seen real football in about 10 years. It's okay though.
I mean, you see it from the other teams.
If that's what we call a glorified scrimmage, yeah, sure. I mean, it's oh man, it's brutal. It'll change one day, maybe.
I'm a Penn State fan.
So. I was a Penn State fan way back in the day, and we don't have to get it. Well, that's another show. Is this a make it or break it year for Howie Roseman? It was a comment that came in here. Kenny said it. The problem is that Howie Roseman doesn't draft the right person regardless. There's been, I think, more misses than hits since he's been back in power. Is this a year for him that if it doesn't go well, he's going to be relegated back to the broom closet?
I don't think it would happen this year because I think this is kind of the first year he's actually had a full draft stock. He had some pretty good picks last year, but he only had like those 3 at the beginning, and then it's kind of back to picks that you don't necessarily expect to work out. I think this year is the first year that he's actually got an amount of picks, and he has picks at different points in the draft. So I think this will be the start to like a make or break year, probably next year if it doesn't work out this year. But I don't think this year would be the year.
So he's okay. So for all those people out there that are ready to throw him off the Walt Whitman or the Ben Franklin, it's going to be okay. He's going to be around for a little while.
Yeah, it's hard though. It's so hard. You almost feel bad for any NFL GM in this situation. There's so many guys. And you have 5 minutes to make a selection that's going to affect the future of the team. Man, it's a very stressful situation. I mean, you saw, I forget who it was. They showed a picture of, it was the Giants GM who had just stacks and stacks of papers on his desk. And I think it was Detroit's GM. He just had computers all over his dining room table since he's doing all his work at home. Just all that research. I mean, it's so hard to get it right all the time.
Yeah, and then I can't imagine how annoying it must be to have like your draft board and then people go off at random spots and you got to try and figure out who's the best person left in that 10 minutes. The one thing that always angers me about the draft is that first pick where we sit there and wait for 10 minutes as though we don't know what's going to happen. They have no idea what's going to come.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anthony corrected me. It was the GM from the Giants. I'm sorry. Thank you for that, Anthony.
Yeah. Dave Gettleman, who is it's Dave Gettleman. It's the Giants.
Yeah. The Detroit GM is going to have frigging the Geek Squad from Best Buy outside his house during the draft. So just in case anything goes wrong.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. So the NFL held a mock draft, I believe, yesterday, Monday, and there, depending on who you hear from, there may or may not have been an issue with the mock draft. This can't go smoothly, can it? Is it going to be all about watching this to make sure like that it just shuts down? Someone's going to hack it. The Chinese or the Russians are going to come in, and next thing you know, it's awesome. It's like War Games, not the wrestling match, the movie.
That. I wouldn't be surprised. You got like a small portion of the NFL leadership that knows what they're doing and can handle computers, and then you've got a whole bunch of people afraid of change. And I don't know that they're even willing to just let everything go to the point where they can let someone who's tech savvy enough to set it up successfully run with it all the way.
I saw Michael was referring to John Lynch tweeted out a setup that I got to tell you what, I want it. It was a monstrous monitor right in front of him and like 6 other monitors on his desk and his keyboard and his laptop. It's going to be interesting. This is going to be an interesting time. But I agree with you. I hate the first pick. We know it's Joe Burrow. I mean, just announce it. Announce it now.
Well, I mean, this is usually the first pick already like signed, sealed, and delivered. His contract is done. I mean, who knows? This draft probably could have already happened. That mock draft probably was the draft, and they're just gonna replay it, reenactment on Thursday night for everybody.
They're gonna sit there. They tape the whole thing. Dave chimes back in. Nick Harris from Washington does not ring a bell for me. Looking at some of my paperwork here and some of my notes. Paul, anything? You got anything on Nick Harris?
No, it's not somebody I think I've put a lot of time into.
Outstanding. It's it's an offensive lineman name for you right there. Sign him up. Pick him now.
I will take a look at it. I will take a look at it, Dave, and let you know. Anthony chimes in. Jerry Jones will take Goodell's spot. I don't know what that means, but this would be cool if they would let players, this is just an opinion here, if they would let some players make these picks, kind of like we're talking now. They're going to have Roger Goodell in his basement. I don't need to see Roger Goodell in his basement. I'd like to see Tom Brady sitting on his couch with Gronk and the WWE 24/7 title. With the 12th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select.
Come out and make the pick and take the belt.
That would be good. They got to drop that. What do you think is going to happen? Anything fun going to come out of this, or are we just going to have a bunch of old guys zooming?
I would think they're going to try and get people involved. I think I read something a couple days ago that Miles Sanders is supposed to announce the Eagles' 2nd round pick.
Saw that, yep.
Peter King was saying that he would be surprised if they don't have like nurses and EMS and first responders and stuff announcing it. Probably towards the later rounds. I would think the first day when everybody is watching, that's going to be Roger Goodell zooming from his basement, and pretty much not much else, unless the EA like video that they made up for all these players with the video game player forms and stuff. Unless that somehow works out.
Did they really do this?
Yeah, they picked a certain amount of players.
That's
for
great.
I don't know how functional it'll be, but yeah,
it's like the players that they were going to be at the draft. They did it for them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. That's kind of cool. I kind of like that. I did see that they were going to have cameras on certain guys, and they were telling them they have to wear Nike. They can't wear this. They can't wear that. Typical stuff. But real quick, we want to get your opinion on what occurred today. The Tampa Bay Patriots traded for, and I guess the Tampa Bay Patriots traded for Rob Gronkowski from New England. The Bucks. Why would the Bucks need Rob Gronkowski other than the obvious that it's Tom Brady's boy?
I don't know that they really do. I mean, they. In the recent past, they had sunk a pretty significant amount of resources into the tight end position, and they've already got 2 of the best 5 receivers in the league or something like that. So I don't know that there's any reason to have a receiving tight end other than Tom Brady said he needs him.
That's kind of, I think, what everyone figured, but still nonetheless one of those things that is kind of surprising. Anthony chimes back in. It would be funny if Roger Goodell had a bunch of Brady and Belichick posters on his wall. That's
a good one.
I was thinking with circles on it and darts, but maybe a clown face painted on Belichick. And I like Belichick. I think he's a great coach. He cheated the system to win. It happens, That's why there's rules.
That's how you win.
That's how you win.
That's how you win. With that Gronk trade, just going back to that real fast. I mean, they have OJ Howard, who is a really good tight end, who is, a game-breaking tight end. And then on top of that, they have Cameron Brayton to back him up, who's had success before OJ Howard came to town.
Right.
So this whole trait kind of baffles me on why that is, because unless they're going to run 2 tight end sets, and both of them are going to be weapons. So, I mean, Mike Evans' health has been an issue over the past couple seasons as well. So with 2 tight ends as a weapons, it kind of, helps Mike Evans be able to get open along in outside a little more.
Yeah, the only other thing I could possibly think of is if they're really worried about not being able to get training camp and build that chemistry with the guys, Gronkowski would be the only one in the building that he has the chemistry with.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Brady can't even work out with his receivers right now.
He was cited.
Yeah,
he was cited by the Tampa Police Department for being outside in a public place. Who knows what's going to happen moving forward? But that's a good point. I wouldn't even think about it. We're going to put you on the spot here as we wrap up this show. We're talking to you Thursday night. The Eagles have drafted who?
On Thursday, I was assuming that they stayed put.
Yeah, we're going to say that they're
whatever you want to do. You're Howie Roseman. The Eagles are on the clock.
You're the GM.
You're up.
I think my biggest pick would probably be Christian Fulton if he's there. He's not my favorite cornerback in the draft, but I think he's the best one that could slide to 21. And I think it would be a good idea for the Eagles to get someone who could become a lockdown corner to play alongside Slay. And since the Slay contract is only 2 years, and then they can get out of it if he's not playing up to caliber 2 years from now, you have somebody that you can then develop alongside a new cornerback. So,
Michael on Facebook wants to trade up for CD.
I'm sorry, what?
Cody on Facebook wants to trade up for CD, wide receiver out of Alabama, I believe, right?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, that's right. Red.
Yeah,
color.
I'm only trading up for him if he's slipping. I don't think they have the capital to get up to 10 or 9 or whatever. And
he's projecting like 10 to 12 right now, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm not trading up there, and then especially if you're aiming for 12 or something, you run the risk of him just not being there. Somebody picking him at 10 or 11, and then you've traded all your capital and you end up with the guy that you weren't looking for. So,
yeah, I think the Eagles are unfortunately going to walk away. If my gut tells me that they're going to walk away with Justin Jefferson there at 21, I don't think that they're going to make any moves. I don't know that there's anything that's really going to entice them. I hope I'm wrong. Anthony chimes in. He would like Murray or Clavon Chazon. I actually really do like him as an edge guy. He's there. He's number 2 behind Chase Young, who's probably going in the top 3 picks of the draft. Definitely an interesting pick. I think they're going wide receiver. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they go offensive lineman because, offensive linemen are fantastic. And I'm an old lineman, so that's why I appreciate the fat guys.
Wouldn't mind an old lineman. They help the quarterback stay healthy.
You gotta have a guy that can block for Carson Wentz because you don't have a backup right now, and you want the dude to be healthy. I mean, it comes down to that. You got to block for him. It was kind of the conversation we had on the mock draft show talking about the Giants when they drafted Saquon Barkley, and they should have taken either a quarterback or a tackle to protect their quarterback, the quarterback, and they didn't.
Well, they didn't need to. They had Eric Flowers. So.
Yeah, exactly. Eric Flowers. Planting Flowers. I don't even know where he is now. Hey, real quick, a bunch of uniforms. We'd like to talk goofy stuff on here sometime. And Michael was texting me earlier. A bunch of teams changed uniforms. Los Angeles. I'm sorry. The Chargers debuted. Okay. They brought back the powder blues. By far, to me, I think the best one of the bunch. What are some of your thoughts on any of the uniform changes?
I mean, we got 2 new Chargers uniforms. I wasn't a big fan of the Buccaneers. the Patriots, I didn't really notice much of a difference.
Yeah, that one was awful. I don't.
It was their alternate jersey. That's all it is. It was last year. It was the other year's alternates. Now they're the primary. They did the red, white, and blue stripes on the shoulders.
See, I like what Tampa Bay did going back to the Super Bowl style jersey from when they were in the Super Bowl and keeping the large logo on the helmet. But this was a perfect opportunity to go back to Bucko Bruce and the creamsicle. You knew you were getting Brady. You should have had that in the pipeline. And then you have Atlanta, which looks like a reject Arena Football League team.
Yes, It does. It does. The pants for the Chargers sold me, man. I mean, they have the bolt on the pants, which
the whole thing. It looks fantastic.
Yeah, the other NFL teams, it's just stripes, right? This is the first time you're seeing an actual design on the pants, right?
Well, they've always had the bolt.
The Broncos had the wavy lines, the orange and blue lines on their pants.
The Broncos need to tell 1996 that it's time to go, and they need to get back with it. But that's enough uniform talk for today. We'll get with that next time. Paul, tell everyone where they can find you. It's been scrolling on the bottom, but tell everyone where they can find you and what you have going on.
So I'm the Eagles manager for Sports Talk Philly. You can find me at Philly Ball Paul on Twitter. Just look up Sports Talk Philly and go to Eagles coverage, and you'll probably find one of my articles. You can just click on that.
We are going to be broadcasting live after the Eagles make their pick on Thursday. We kind of have a tentative for 9:45. Be sure to check that out. You can follow us everywhere on social at SEC247 Show. We are part of Sports Talk Philly. Our show is posted there. We have some articles coming out, having fun. The mock draft is out. It's not out on YouTube because YouTube screwed us, but it is on all podcast forms. Exactly where you can find this show come Thursday. Everywhere you find podcasts, and obviously right here live. Until next week, we'll see you, and go Birds, stay safe. Hey, thanks for all the first responders for doing what you're doing, the healthcare workers. Oh, and it reminds me, Carson Wentz, you are the man for sending a care package to the workers at Cooper University Hospital emergency room. My kids are loving the Cheez-Its that we ran out of, so I greatly appreciate that. You have no idea. You have saved my life. I very much appreciate it. See you guys next week. We'll catch you Thursday.